on this panel, it's Donald Trump, baby.
Yep.
It's all about Donald Trump, right? The old pivot. We're not going to talk about what's going on in Somalia and not going to talk about what's going on in Minnesota with this massive fraud scandal. We're going to talk about Donald Trump. With my remaining seconds, can we play the video I have, Mr. Chairman?
I just watched Democrats go dead silent in a hearing, and the reason why should honestly make you furious. Congressman Eli Crane rolls a video, lays out the receipts, and suddenly the room that was screaming racism just freezes. If this doesn't wake people up before 2026, nothing will. So hit subscribe, because this is exactly the kind of story they don't want getting out.
Comes after weeks of viral videos from a young man YouTuber who was literally creeping around daycares by himself, making claims about fraud that were not there. And then the vice president and the FBI director were retweeting these videos without even verifying if they were true. So we're not accusing people of being xenophobic and racist. They are being xenophobic and racist, including the president of the United States. And I want to say, for one, that I stand with the Somali and the immigrant community standing here today.
Mr. Hudson, are you just hearing from Republicans on this, or are Democrat constituents like, oh my God, I'm struggling to put my kids in school, struggling to make ends meet, and my tax dollars are being robbed by people, and then they're sending it all over the place, and this is complete fraud. What is going on, and why hasn't anything been done about it?
I'll give you a personal example. So my family, my in-laws in particular, are politically diverse. A lot of them vote for Democrats, and they're fairly apolitical. They're not like me, all plugged in. And so I kind of use them as a bellwether for what the people are thinking. Across the board, everybody is upset about this fraud.
And I'm guessing when you guys bring this up, whether it's to the Waltz administration, whether it's to the AG, the number one thing that comes back at you is you're a racist, you're a white supremacist, or you're an Islamophobe. As we've seen Governor Waltz now trying to answer for these questions, he's doing it at the national level. Do you guys hear the same thing at the state level as well?
Yes, absolutely. They always pivot to the divisive. As I stated in my opening statement, it's diversion, right? We're going to talk about personalities. We're going to talk about partisan politics. We're going to find some way to get people yelling at each other rather than looking at the problem.
Or, like you've heard my colleagues do on this panel, it's Donald Trump, baby.
Yep.
It's all about Donald Trump, right? The old pivot. We're not going to talk about what's going on in Somalia and not going to talk about what's going on in Minnesota with this massive fraud scandal. We're going to talk about Donald Trump. With my remaining seconds, can we play the video I have, Mr. Chairman?
horta aad iyo aadaan ugu faraxsanahay in maanta safaari aan soo gaarnay sida dadka badan ay u og yihiin ciyaalkeena yaryar ilaa iyo number la eg 20 milyan oo ciyaal iskooley ah waxay cuntadooda ka helaan iskoolka kaliyo marka waxaan fursad u helnay in aan sharci soo gudbino oo la dhahayo Meals Act oo u fududeynayo in waqtigaanay pandemic aan ku jirno oo dhalinyarada iskoolka aynan joogin oo guryahooda ay joogaan aynan gaajoonin oo familkoodi wili ay fursad u helaan in cunto ay helaan oo meelo qaarkood laga qaybinayo ay cuntada ka soo qaadan karaan marka aadaan ugu mahadcelinayaa safari in ay tahay meelaha city oo diyaarinooyo cunto maalin kasto dhalinyarada ciyaalkii iyo familkoodina ku taakuleynayo cuntada city maalintii kaliyo safari waxay ay cunto siisaa 2300 oo ciyaal ah iyo familkooda taas waa mid muhiim ah sida aad u ogtihiin dhalinyaro badan gaajo ku nool wadankaanayti ama familkooda fursad u helin in quraac qada iyo casho ay siiso marka in qadadaasaytii ay meel ka helaan aaday u muhiimsan tahay bishaan ramadaanka oo familiyaalkeena badan iyagoo aan shaqo haysanin iyagoo aan taakulayn kale helaynin in aynan ka walwalin ciyaalkooda yaryar sidii ay qada ku siin lahaayeen waa muhiim marka waxaan u mahadcelinayaa safaariyo kaleete iyo dadka badan oo maalin ilaahay keeno fursad u qaatay in ay u volunteer gareeyaan oo ay taakuleeyaan familiyaalka.
One thing that is so alarming is the reporting that many of these fraudulent companies are then donating the stolen money back to the same Democrats that are protecting them and advocate for these very programs. Is that correct, Mr. Hudson?
I would agree with that statement.
Well, we just had one of my Democrat colleagues said these are just opinions. You know, are these guys donating money back to Democrats?
Yes, they are.
I'd like to enter into the record, Mr. Chairman, an article from Breitbart News saying, with the title being Database Searches Show Somali Fraudsters Funding Democrat Politicians. So these aren't opinions.
Without objection,
There's actually
order.
reporting on this. Are you guys aware? You guys are elected officials in Minnesota, right? Are you guys aware of the reporting that some of the stolen money is getting funneled back to the Islamic terror group Al-Shabaab in Somalia? Mr. Robbins.
Yes, sir. And we have evidence of it going back as far as 2012, where a man was convicted of sending $21,000 to Al-Shabaab. In 2011, 2 Minnesota women were convicted of sending money to different groups. Someone else, we have multiple references of how the Al-Shabaab takes a cut when the money gets to Somalia through the Hawala network. So I think there's ample.
I'm sitting there watching this hearing unfold, and at first it's the same script we've all seen 100 times. Democrats immediately pivot to accusations, racism, xenophobia, Islamophobia, you name it. It's like clockwork. No matter what the issue is, no matter what evidence is being presented, the first move is always to attack the motive instead of addressing the problem. And here's the thing that really stood out to me. This wasn't even subtle. You had members straight up saying, no, we're not accusing people. They are racist. That's the defense. Not facts. Not counter-evidence. Just labeling anyone asking questions as morally wrong. But then Eli Crane steps in, and everything changes, because he doesn't argue louder. He doesn't try to outshout them. He just brings receipts. He starts asking a very simple question. Are everyday people, even Democrats, concerned about fraud? And the answer, yes, across the board. Not partisan, not ideological. Regular Americans looking at their tax dollars and asking, where is this money going? That's when you start to see the cracks. Because now it's no longer about left versus right. It's about reality versus deflection. And then comes the moment. Crane introduces evidence, reports, data, articles, showing money allegedly meant for programs, including child care and food aid, being abused, not just wasted, but potentially funneled back into political systems through donations. Think about that for a second. Taxpayer money goes out, gets mishandled or stolen, and somehow finds its way back into political campaigns. If that's even partially true, that's not just inefficiency. That's corruption baked into the system. And what happens when that gets brought up? Silence, not outrage, not denial backed with facts. Silence, because you can't scream racism at a spreadsheet. You can't shout down documented transactions. You can't cancel raw data. That's the moment everything shifts in the room. And then Crane takes it even further, raising concerns about money being sent overseas, potentially even touching extremist networks. Now, whether every claim there is fully proven or not, here's the key point. These are serious allegations that demand serious answers. But instead of answers, what do we get? More deflection. More Trump did this or Republicans did that. It's the oldest trick in the book. When you can't defend your position, change the subject. And I'm sitting here thinking, this is exactly why people are losing trust. Because Americans aren't stupid. You can only tell people don't believe your eyes for so long before they start asking harder questions. And here's where it gets even more frustrating for me. There's this pattern where any attempt to investigate fraud, especially in sensitive areas, is immediately framed as an attack on a community. And that's dangerous. Not because it protects people, but because it protects bad actors hiding behind good people. If there's fraud, it should be exposed, period. Doesn't matter who's involved. Doesn't matter what group it touches. Accountability should not depend on politics. But what we're seeing instead is a system where pointing out problems makes you the problem. And that's backwards. That's how you end up with more waste, more abuse, and more distrust. And Crane calls it out perfectly. This constant diversion tactic. Keep people arguing about identity. Keep people emotional. Keep people divided so nobody actually looks at where the money is going. Because once people start looking, really looking, that's when things get uncomfortable. That's when silence happens. That's when hearings go from loud to quiet real fast. And look, here's the bottom line for me. If there's nothing to hide, then investigate everything. If the system is clean, transparency should prove it. But if the reaction to questions is anger instead of answers, that tells you something. And I think more and more people are starting to see it, which is why moments like this matter. Not because of one politician, not because of one hearing, but because it shows how the system reacts under pressure. And what I saw here was a system that got very, very quiet when the facts started talking. If you're not paying attention to this kind of thing, you should be, because this is exactly where your tax dollars, your trust, and your future intersect. And if you want more breakdowns like this, real moments, no fluff, just what actually happened, make sure you subscribe. Because stories like this, they're not going away anytime soon.